Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be talking about my 2.5-year journey as an investor in the stock market and going to be going through my results and more importantly how I got these results. Now firstly, I'm going to tell you how and why I started my investment journey. So how I got into investing was at the start of 2022 and I was currently working in the real estate world and I had a really cool boss who I was working with at the time. And he was the one that actually pulled me aside and said, hey Henry, you should actually start investing in stocks. And I actually remember after this conversation feeling rather overwhelmed and intimidated with investing in stocks because I had little to no knowledge in the subject. These are common feelings to experience when you're an investing beginner. And so after that conversation, I went home and I did research for weeks on what stocks and ETFs should I invest in and learned how the stock market actually operates. And in roughly that same period of time, I had come up with the life goal to retire early as possible and reach financial freedom. And I thought the stock market, after extensive research, was a good tool to get there. And that's the story of how and why I started investing 2.5 years ago. All right, let's get into the fun bit of the video and actually start reviewing my results over the last 2.5 years. Now, the first ever investment I ever made was in the ETF called the iShares Global 100 ETF. This ETF has 100 blue chip companies and has some of the largest well-known companies around the world. So ultimately, this fund is a very quick and simple way to get exposure to the global economy. And so 2.5 years ago, I bought 5 shares of this ETF, and that was back in the 9th of March in 2022. And I bought them roughly at $96 each. And roughly 2.5 years later, they are roughly around $145 each a share, which is some pretty cool profit. And since the initial investment, I invested nothing else and I am up $246, which is a gain of 51% over the last 2 and a bit years. And in terms of dividends on this investment, I only receive roughly like $3 every 6 months, very little. I'll probably sell these shares and reinvest my money into the S&P 500 where a lot of my money is allocated, which you will see the results of soon. Now, this next ETF I also bought on the 9th of March in 2022, and this was a high dividend yield ETF. As you see on the screen here, I have contributed roughly $489 on this investment. And on this investment, I am roughly down $40. I didn't expect this to be a higher growing ETF because it is a high dividend yielding ETF, which means typically they're not going to have much growth, but they do provide you with decent dividends. Now, I've only invested roughly $500 into this ETF, but it is definitely a great ETF to buy into if you are looking for a strong dividend income and allow you to kind of have that second source of income as well if you are searching for that at the moment. With only 16 shares in this ETF, it pays me $4.30 every 3 months. And like the last ETF, this will also be one that I'm probably going to sell in the short term as I'm not heavily investing into it, and I believe you need to heavily invest in this ETF if you are going to get any gains, well, any serious gains from it. And as you can see in the image on the screen, I have spent $971.11 in total on these ETFs. And as you can see, the current market value today is $1,176. And over the last 2.5 years, these ETFs bring me to a total profit of combined $205, and that is excluding dividends. Okay, now it's time to move on to the last ETF that I've invested in the last 2.5 years, and this ETF is the one that I've continued to invest in regularly. And by continuously investing into this ETF, this is the one that's brought me the most amount of gains over the last 2.5 years. And this last ETF is called the SPDR S&P 500 ETF Trust. Now, I made my first investment in the S&P 500 on the 21st of March 2022 after conducting a lot of extensive research online and watching quite a number of YouTube videos. And so after days and weeks of research, I decided in 2022, all right, Henry, you're going to invest as much money into this as possible and try and make the most of it. And so over the 2.5 years, I was dollar cost averaging into the market. And so I was roughly spending roughly the same amount of money into the market every 2 to 3 months to achieve optimum results. Without further ado, here are the results I achieved in the S&P 500 over the last 2.5 years. Okay, as you can see on the screen now, I have made just north of $12,000 in gains over the last 2.5 years, which leads me to a 25.99% total profit on my investments. So this leaves me with a total value of just north of $58,000. And with owning 71 units in the S&P 500, I get roughly $100 gross in dividends every 3 months. And I'm very happy with the amount of dividends it's paying. That's essentially $33 extra a month that I'm making, just by simply putting my money in the market rather than putting it in the bank, where I would receive barely anything on bank interest. I personally love investing in the S&P 500 because it is such a simple and effective way to diversify your portfolio. And this is important because it's going to protect your assets, but also allowing you to grow your assets at the same time. Now, if you're wondering how I achieved my results, it was actually pretty simple. The 2 things I did to achieve this over the last 2 and a bit years was make an effective budget and follow through with it every week, so that way I could actually have money to invest with. And the second thing I did was make sure I'm dollar cost averaging into the market, which meant I was actually investing every 2 to 3 months consistently over the last 2.5 years. This has been important to my success so far in investing because I wasn't actually trying to time the market rather than just have time in the market and not trying to pick highs and lows and trying to get those winners, but just getting the market's average overall. And this can be achieved by using the dollar cost averaging technique. So in conclusion, over the last 2.5 years, I have made 12.2k in gains and have accumulated a total market value of $59,502. Alright, that's the end of the video. If you have any questions, make sure to comment down below and leave a like and subscribe if you have enjoyed watching this.